So good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to our monthly meeting in CPD. Last month of March, we were not able to have one because most of the people were celebrating Ramadan and Eid holidays, and so we decided that we had to cancel the monthly meeting in CPD for March. So anyhow, we're back on the road, and once again, it's a pleasure to see everyone here and to be sharing again information about our profession in risk and safety. So tonight I'll be talking to you about the topic that I've developed, which is entitled as how risk and safety practitioners can contribute to increasing awareness in ensuring safety and health at work in a changing climate. So we're all aware that 2 days ago there was a global celebration of the International Labor Organization World Day for Health and Safety, and this is also the reason why I thought of coming up with this topic so that we can be refreshed. We can have information as to our roles as risk and safety practitioners. So first of all, let's take a look at the um, context of extreme weather and climate change. We all believe that nowadays the weather just keeps on changing in this part of the world, the Middle East. We've witnessed um, a very unfamiliar weather condition about 2 weeks ago, and although we're enjoying the delayed shift from uh, how do we call it, from cold season to summer, and yet we're experiencing extreme weather, which we are experiencing a shift of a short-term condition from outside of the normal weather conditions where we are in. So a couple of weeks ago, we experienced heavy rains, and it affected all of us here in the Gulf region. Uh, I believe it all started in Oman, and it shifted to Dubai, and we were also anticipating here in Qatar that we will have a heavy downpour of rain, but luckily the heavy rains were blown by the wind, and we did not experience that much heavy rain. But anyhow, that is part of climate change, and we're experiencing a gradual process taking place. And overall, this climate change has been causing us uncomfortable conditions. Right now in Philippines, we are seeing the news every day about the extreme weather condition that people are experiencing. For how many years that we were monitoring our weather? It's only this year that in some areas in Philippines, the heat index reaches as high as 50 plus. So it's also an evident that there's an increased number of the amount of financial cost brought about by increased temperatures all over the world. We have melting ice caps, we have melting glaciers, and we are reading that and we are seeing in the news about the impact of this. And so it's only telling us that extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and more severe due to climate change. Of course, we are all contributors to this event. And as risk and safety practitioners, we let us believe that there's something that we can do in this regard. Just allow me to for us to be refreshed with what took place last February 28th. And we know that the International Labor Organization is always um, commemorating the World Day for Safety and Health. And for this year, the theme is about ensuring safety and health at work in a changing climate. And that's why I also decided that I will align my topic to this. a theme of the ILO. And we are looking at the climate change, which has something to do with occupational safety and health. And it's already there. Climate change is already there. All of us are affected of this, and of course, there's always a what we call as adverse impact to the workplace, and the workers are always the victims of this. And how would we consider our practice in risk and safety to be contributing to the impact of climate change at the workplace? The answer is all up to us. But with this presentation, perhaps I can say that I've tried my best to do some research and incorporate some of the things that we may have not touched yet, or it's of our interest, but we're not really getting into it there yet. So, um, climate change impacts the world of work, and there's an uneven distribution of its effect in different regions and sectors. And of course, there's always financial implication due to loss of productivity, business disruptions, and damaged infrastructures. And we are witnessing its impact as in other parts of the world. There's heavy rains, there's floodings, while in other parts of the world there's drought. And of course, who are affected of this? These are the group of people there are groups of people who are particularly at risk, especially those who are working outdoors, and also indoor workers who are exposed to hot and poorly ventilated environments, people who are also working in emergency services, people in the health sector, not only inside the hospital, but those from the hospital who are also assigned to travel from the hospital to attend to patients who are confined at home but requires healthcare monitoring from the healthcare facilities. There are also other interested parties, individuals such as pregnant women, children, older adults, and persons with disabilities. And of course, in the informal economy, we have people who are not employed. They do business their own, and the sad thing is, who monitors their health and safety? Who can advise them? And at a personal level, it is also our moral responsibility to ensure that we share what we have as risk and safety practitioners. The ILO has identified some of the very important uh, change in the climate which impacts or affects workers' health and safety. So there are quite a few of them: excessive heat, and of course the effect of ultraviolet rays to the workers' skin, and we have extreme weather events. The air gets polluted. There are some diseases that are um, brought by the ever-changing climate, and of course the effect also of chemicals that are used for agricultural uh, services. Now, what are the different health issues that can impact the workers? We all know that when there's excessive heat, workers can get involved into experiencing heat stress, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and a lot of things that's caused by excessive heat in the atmosphere. Not only that, but of course also the mental health condition of the worker gets affected as well. And we all believe that mental health issues is one of the many talks at the workplace nowadays. In fact, tomorrow we are celebrating Labor Day. I'll be talking to a group of Filipinos here in Qatar, and I'll be talking about stress and mental health subjects for them, and to give them some advice in the context of risk and safety. The ultraviolet rays can cause sunburn, eye damage, weakened immunity, and various skin cancers. If you are not really keen in using shades or eye protection, take a look at the ones that can provide you with a very good UV protection. And personally, I prefer to have polarized shades that I can use so that somewhat my eyes can be protected from extreme ultraviolet radiation brought about by the effect of solar UV radiation. And during extreme weather events, people can get engaged in emergency situations, road traffic accidents, slips, trips, and falls, and also workplace fires resulting to burns, respiratory tract injuries, diseases from biological hazards brought about by the spread of chemicals and the toxic effects from these hazardous materials. And also emotionally and psychologically, we can also be fatigued, and we get anxious, and we get stressed, and of course post-traumatic stress disorders. At the workplace, when there is poor air quality, chances are our respiratory system can get affected, and worse, resulting to lung cancer, and also cardiovascular diseases and eye irritation if we're not particular with instituting eye protection among the workers. And some vector-borne diseases such as malaria, where you have mosquitoes shifting from one place to another place. And also we have dengue, hemorrhagic fever. We can also have schistosomiasis and other diseases uh, that we can get from someone and then transferred by insects or mosquitoes to another place or another area, and then again it will travel from one place and then affecting one person, and so we can spread vector-borne diseases. Now, one also of the big topic about climate change is mental health. Of course, when the business is affected, chances are there will be layoff of workers, and so resulting to job insecurity. And what can happen to the workers? The workers, once they get laid off, they will feel distress. And of course, in our case, as migrant workers, it's so difficult once you lose your job, because we all know that economically speaking, a lot of people are relying from us when it comes to financial support, and thereby resulting to mental stress, and eventually it will be mental health disorder. And there are some specific occupations also that can be affected, like those in disaster relief operations during recovery. Also, of course, in construction, we all know very well that the workers are really exposed to a lot of factors that can cause them to experience mental health brought about by climate change. And the healthcare group of people, they've been found to be particularly at risk for mental health issues. And so it's really very important that we take a look at mental health as one of the focus of our attention when it comes to educating ourselves and then sharing the knowledge and information that we have in risk and safety practice. So climate change not only directly impact mental health. But when you are exposed to excessive heat, this can also result to sleeping disorders. It can also affect your behavior and even your concentration. And the result of this will be all about work safety and productivity. That's why I always encourage workers to prepare themselves so that they get they get good sleep at night. And at nighttime, if you can afford to disconnect your Wi-Fi connection, your cellular connection, your Bluetooth, disconnect them by the time you sleep, and then just reconnect them by the time you wake up, and never ever attempt to open your phone in the middle of the night. Like, for example, if you'll be awakened by the call of nature to go to the toilet for urination, just disregard your phone and only open your phone once you've set it into your wake up alarm, so that somehow you can good a very good night's sleep, and therefore you can have a very good productivity during the day. Now, I will just attempt to open this video. I extracted this from the ILO also. So I wonder if this can be, you can view this. I will just check. Can anyone confirm if you're viewing the video?
No, Leo. I think you have to change the sharing the screen.
Leo, you might be able to stop share and then share it from a browser. That if that might work.
I will try this. I will try this
But
one.
when you press share, you just need to click the share sound button in case there's sound in
Yep.
your presentation. I'll stay on just in case.
Yeah, now
So,
we can
and
see the video.
okay, so let me start from the beginning. Here we go.
But there is no sound.
There's no sound.
No, Leo.
Leo, if you
Okay.
press stop sharing,
We are getting sound.
and then when you press share again, you just have to click a tick box, which is on the right, which says share sound. It's under options. And hopefully that should sort it.
Can you confirm if there is a video, there is sound in this video, please?
I can't hear any sound. I can just see it.
Okay, so anyway, let me just abort the showing of the video and let me just go back to the presentation. My apology for that. That's a uh, technical glitch. Let me just again open this. Where am I now? Okay, so my apology for the technical glitch on the video. I thought it's gonna go smooth, but anyhow, let's now go into introducing ourselves to the crucial role of a risk practitioner in relation to climate change. As I've mentioned earlier, we believe that there are a number of things that we have yet to incorporate in our practice so that we can really say that we are integrating a number of things in our risk and safety practice in terms of contributing into ensuring awareness in health and safety and risk and safety practice for us as risk and safety practitioners. So um, we know that climate change is aggravating, and the impact of this to workplace health and safety is really affecting different business landscapes where there are a lot of uncertainties and potential threats. But one thing that we have to take a look at here, of course, is also the positive risk that we can exploit, and we can take a look at as to what lessons can we learn from this event of climate change. And we know that organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of the type of industry, we as risk and safety practitioners, we need to also navigate through the number of risk and our capabilities, so that we can say that we can help others become aware of the impact of climate change to the changing climate. Now, one of those subjects that I really wanted to for us to take a look at is the subject on ESG, or otherwise known as environmental, social, and governance issues or risk. So I wonder if how many of us here are environmental risk and safety practitioners, where we understand that in some places we are experiencing flooding. In some places, we're experiencing drought. And of course, these are all brought by natural disasters, and eventually will result to loss of human life and wildlife, and of course, the degradation of our atmosphere, including the ozone layer. And the reason why I wanted to emphasize on this, so that this can also create for us environmental awareness, that we can not only, if we may not be able to practice this at a professional level, at least we're gaining knowledge and information, and we can also incorporate this in our risk and safety practice, particularly if you are involved. If one is involved in policy making, or if one is involved in educational awareness about the environment. And the next part of the ESG is what we call as social issues. We're mostly familiar with this. We're in different working workplaces. We have workers suffering from unsafe working conditions, depending on the industries that they are in, and also depending on the type of the type or the quality of employer do they have. Now, as risk and safety practitioners, we are always involved in organizational governance, because we serve as middleman, mediators between the people at the front line and also people at the top management. So we are the catalyst that binds the frontliners and the top management. And one thing that we really have to take a look at here is, how do we gather information, and how do we uh, share balanced information between the people at the front line and also the people at the top of our organization. Although I'm translating this at the workplace scenario, but yet when we talk about environmental, social, and governance risks, it is indeed part of our risk and safety practice. Moreover, the um, climate change is also indeed part of ESG. And yes, indeed, it's one of the greatest threat to human health. Where if we don't pay attention to this, we will get we will become ignorant of the adverse impact of climate change when it comes to environmental, social, and governance. What does this mean? It only means that we need to have our eyes wide open, and to be for us to be more vigilant or as to what's happening around us. Sometimes we get so much focused to what is in front of us, and we forget to the other dimension of our professional horizon. That's why I'm really considering that environmental, social, and governance is one areas where a risk practitioner has to pay attention to, so that we can ensure that we bring more awareness to health and safety brought about by climate change. Now, in terms of businesses and industries, ESG mean that there are actions that we need to take so that we can contribute somehow in our own little way when it comes to climate change reduction. Just like, for example, how do we look at single-use plastics when we go to a gathering? How do we capitalize on our knowledge about using of disposable materials, disposable um, uh, plastic cups, plastic plates, and do we view this as opportunities for future growth? So it's really a question of how aware are we, so that we can also bring awareness to other people. And we need to believe that the fight against climate change, it requires a huge amount of time, money, and one thing is missing here, convenience, which is already incorporated in the other resources. So this is again the concept of so far as is reasonably practicable. That's why when I was looking at the subject on ESG, I was again reminded by the steps to risk assessment. And what brought me into my thinking was the suitable and sufficient risk assessment whenever I do my job in my organization. And of course, talking about resources, how does ESG affect, or what does it mean for business and industry where we are in? And another subject that I was also really interested to share with you is again another topic which talks about diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to how is it correlated to us as risk and safety practitioners. The question is why diversity, equity, and inclusion matters. It's because issues on social, health, and economic, they challenge us, and there's an unprecedented complexity, and the scale confronts mankind big time. Big time. Really, it confronts mankind big time, which on the hindsight, we as risk and safety practitioners, sometimes we just say, is it really my concern? It will not be our concern if we're not going to put ourselves into really knowing what does DEI mean to us as risk and safety practitioners. But if it means something to us, then we can say, yes, indeed, it confronts mankind big time. So we as part of our workplace organization, we need to focus on if we may not be involved in physical design, we may get involved in policy designing, programs designing, procedures designing. We may get involved in planning, and the most important thing is how can we contribute to instigating mitigation options for our organization. So it could be at the individual level, it could be outside of the organization, but maybe in our community, in the society where we belong, we can also contribute to the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, there's a great opportunity for us to learn and to grow and to look at the impact through the diversity, equity, and inclusion practices. So, like for example, can we consider ourselves to be shifting from the traditional way of cleaning things, that instead of using highly commercialized products, let's somewhat shift to those that we've learned when during our younger days, and in including also materials that we might be we might not be considering, like I do not know if some of you do practice sustainability, and we should also involve other people in this. And equity, no one has to be excused, all of us, because when we talk about positive risk, yes, indeed, there's great opportunity that we can learn from, that we can grow, and we can somewhat reduce the impact through this matter which we call as DI. And also, if again, if we will shift into another dimension, we can create a safer place for all of us if we can just look at our abilities to be contributing meaningful solutions coordinated with all the people around us. This is really how I look at the DEI in terms of having a risk and safety practitioner develop his different way of thinking from the way it used to be being confronted by this subject nowadays. So in terms of the relationship of DEI and risk management, this is one of the contributors to achieving many objectives within the organization, including world-class risk management. And talking about world-class risk management, yes, indeed, admittedly, AARSM was able to develop world-class risk management programs, such as managing risk essentials and other risk courses. And DI is just similar as imposing a risk management program as it relates to having it embedded in everyone's daily life and applying it in his job, and also solving for DI. It requires skills about analyzing our policies, how do we develop processes, what are in our systems, and of course, when we talk about the way we all behave in one place, which we call as culture, then we can say that DI can also contribute to solving risk issues at the workplace. In totality, DI is considered to be a building block for an organization. And one of the most important element of our business operation, of course, is the human element. We cement, we bond the movement of the organization by getting connected in keeping things stable within our organization and beyond. So just like safety at the workplace, DEI is everyone's responsibility, and more so as risk and safety practitioners, there lies ahead a great uh, task and burden uh, put upon our shoulder. So what can we do as risk and safety practitioners? We can really play an instrumental role in, again, in going back to the basics of what we do. We can contribute to identifying risk related to climate change, that climate change contributing factors. We can look at the environment. We can look at how we as community all together behave, community of workers, community of expatriates as one group, as one nationality. We can exercise our risk assessment capabilities, knowledge and skills, and more so in instigating mitigation control, to which potential risk uh, can be one of the things that can contribute to increasing revenues and profits, and also by preventing loss of revenue in the organization. And we further can do some meticulous assessment and meticulous resolution in controlling the risk. And of course, will help us also develop a strategic foresight as we progress into maturing into our risk and safety practice, as we consider ESG and DI in our risk and safety practice. So how do we do that? We can develop, or we can contribute to the already existing risk management programs if we have. And we all know that our practice is always in a risk-based approach or strategy, where we use programs, policies, and procedures as our basis for implementing what the organization wants to achieve, involving the people from below to top and from top to down. And we can conduct suitable and sufficient risk assessment. We can always closely monitor. We can carefully analyze risk management programs, and we can review as to its effectivity. So basically, these are some of the things that we can do, which sometimes we miss at the hindsight, because we get so caught up with things that are in front of us. Now, let me just give you here some essential skills that, again, we might need to refresh ourselves with. Analytical skills. Yes, this last 4 years, we've been confronted with uh, COVID-19, and we've been tied up to protecting ourselves. But have we gone through being analytical of what really uh, brought us into that situation, and how can we further contribute into uh, getting opportunities for learning and to go forward into the direction where we grow more mature than how we were before, taking a look at the 4 years of experience in COVID-19, irrespective of the industry where we are in. And another very essential skills that we need to possess, or we might have been possessing already, but we might need to review, to refresh, and to enhance further, is our decision making skills. Where are we right now in terms of decision making? Have we established our own benchmark that we can say, I have now grown mature in terms of my decision making capabilities than I was before? And also communication skills. We know how important communication skills is at the workplace and beyond. And of course, it all starts with the basic. In fact, communication is really one thing that almost all the people do every day in their lives, in their work lives. In fact, there's a book about telling us that everyone communicates but few people connects. So are we communicating, but are we really connecting when we communicate? So also, this is another essential skill that we need to refresh ourselves with. We need to reassess ourselves with communicating and connecting. And lastly, another essential skill is our negotiation skills. I believe a lot of us are very good in this. We negotiate for the better. We don't negotiate for the loss of um, our knowledge and skills, the loss of gains. And so we believe that we negotiate well as part of our risk abilities. So if you think of what we're really doing in our risk and safety practice, it's all about measuring it. And I always take a look at this in a way that we can continuously monitor our progress by saying that if we don't measure a thing, we cannot manage it. So it's all about the continuous improvement plan, the PDCA, plan, do, check, act. And of course, another tool that we can use is the SMART goal setting. So if we are analyzing our situation right now as risk and safety practitioners in terms of how we can contribute to ensuring awareness at the workplace, yes, indeed, our KPIs, our key performance indicators, they matter. So to whom will it be connected with? Of course, it will be connected with the people that we are torn in between with, the frontliners and the management. So we can go back to the continuous improvement process of PDCA, and we can use a tool. The tool that we really know about is the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound way of measuring things, particularly our key performance indicators. And some challenges that may confront us is about our risk practice competence. We all believe that when we talk about competence in health and safety, we're always saying that a person must have the right skills, a person must be knowledgeable, a person must have the right attitude, he must have uh, undergone very good quality training, and he must have translated that to experience. However, if we are really going to go deep into our risk competence in terms of our understanding of the climate change, ESG, and DEI, of course, we need to go back to the basics of education that we can be establishing our good foundation. And certification, yes, they do matter. And a lot of certified courses are now available when it comes to our being risk competent. Again, analytical skills, the way we communicate and the way we communicate with others. So it's not just simply communicating, but more so it's all about connecting. And then the knowledge of the industry. Yes, of course, we will not engage ourselves in an industry that we are not really knowledgeable about. Our adaptability with the situation. So adaptability and flexibility, they come together. If at first you feel uncomfortable, you feel like you don't belong to that place, just be flexible, and eventually you'll be able to adapt to the situation, and that can be part of your risk competence. And of course, attention to details, ethical judgment, and so on, as we go along to looking at our competence, more so in our practice in managing climate change related workplace risks, the practice of identifying the risk. What are the techniques that we can use if we will put it into situations, the technical situation and the management situation, administrative situation. What are the tools that we can develop, or we can adapt, we can exercise in terms of risk identification, our roles in assessing the risk, also our roles in planning about mitigating the risk, and instigating additional control measures, and going forward, also in contingency planning. So, for example, what do we foresee of ourselves being in a situation right now that, yes, indeed, we are getting affected by climate change and extreme weather conditions. So what do we foresee in the near future? Like, for example, in the next 3 to 5 years, what are our contingency plan when it comes to our profession being in risk and safety practice? And in the place where I am, I can tell you a lot of people have already left the country, and a lot of people are now struggling to be engaged in a kind of employment where they can really apply their skills in risk and safety. And of course, monitoring the things that are happening around us, and maybe taking a close look or reviewing what had been taking place in the last 5 years, compared it to where we are right now. And again, communication is it's always being um, uh, made as a reminder to all of us. Documentation, record keeping, and learning from experience is also very important, because if we are repeating the same story in our risk and safety practice, and then when we take a look at it, it seems like we're not learning from the past and improving in the present times to be maturing in the future, then that will be another issue also. And insurance and contracts, some of us might not be involved in this, but of course, um, some of us are working with contractors under a client, perhaps contractor design management program, or subjects can help us get improved as well. Scenario planning and regular training, which of course comes in two ways, either free of cost or training with cost. So um, these are some of the things that we portray as our roles in managing climate change related uh, to our workplace, and how we can improve awareness personally, and of course for others as well. So this brings us again into being reminded by a very interesting subject in risk management, which is a process in the ISO 31000 of 2018. And if you look at the first bar here, where we see scope, context, criteria, what we're talking about is the context of climate change and its impact into the workplace. So again, that is just an introduction as to where do we really need to start until we go deep into the details of this. As risk and safety managers, we do risk assessment by identifying already the risk, analyzing them and evaluating them, treating them in different ways. Documentation is very important, monitoring in the review, and of course, how do we communicate and how do we consult interested parties when it comes to completing the process, and then making the process revolve again, so that we can see that we are um, in a continuous improvement process or continuous uh, monitoring aspect of the way we manage the risk brought about by climate change and how do we contribute. And on the other hand, we also, at the technical perspective, we can also get to refreshing ourselves with conducting the basics of risk assessment. And of course, in some areas, in some countries, the law applies wherein if you have five or more workers, then you have to do risk assessment. But does it really only apply to five or more? Yes, we can say that it's a big argument, because risk identification does not only mean that you need to have a group of people, but morally speaking, even if there's only one or two workers, we still need to do conducting risk assessment to ensure workplace health and safety, particularly where the workplace is impacted by ever climate changing climate. And I'm not going to go deep into this because you're already familiar with this, except, of course, for those who have heard me talking about other things that I have injected, especially in the technique of hazard identification, which I have developed to be as a abaya, identifying the hazard, looking from above, below, behind, inside, and around, and also by looking at who can be affected and how, uh, expounding it from the original element as to the people only will be affected, but also extending it into equipment, materials, and the environment. And so now I'm going to make you smile that when we say who can be affected and how, the environment can be affected by this climate change, and how it can be affected by the way the people behave from their attitude of the old attitude of not paying attention to the environment. And this is where we are right now, suffering from extreme weather conditions, extreme heat, because of our human activity collectively. So, and so on and so forth. In evaluating the level of risk, we all know this very well, depending on how do we consider it to be low, medium, or high, or uh, you expound it into more levels of risk, and so on and so forth in recording and reviewing of your risk assessment. I also mentioned to you about suitable and sufficient risk assessment. And so the reason why I want to have this again incorporated in this talk, so that we can be reminded that at the workplace with this climate change subject, we really have to do our risk assessment suitable to the situation. Like for example, if we used to talk about heat stress at the workplace, how have we considered nowadays heat stress with the extremes of the heat at the workplace? Will it still be the same the way we used to do it, or will it be different now? And I always tell my friends that subject on heat stress should not only be delivered on the day that we are experiencing heat stress, or on the period of the year where we are experiencing it, but I believe that it's better that we prepare as early as we can, and then we will just go and review by the time we are entering the period of the year where extreme heat can be experienced by the workers. And of course, it has to be sufficient, where the focus on the amount of process is really being paid attention to, and that we ensure that all significant risks are identified. And so in the earlier presentation, we noticed that ILO has identified solar UV radiation, vector-borne diseases, and also mental health. So perhaps you will really consider that mental health is now one of the subject that is brought about by climate change. And so do we just leave this with the experts on mental health? I don't think so. We ourselves, we as risk and safety practitioners, and we are always considered to be in the context of the practice of occupational health and safety. Health is one of the most important thing also that we need to look at, because health also entails a lot of risk, and one of them is mental health. So think about suitable and sufficient risk assessment skills that we possess as we continue to get confronted with climate change, and as our role in ensuring increase of awareness at the workplace. And of course, this is very familiar with the people who have gone through international safety training, we all know to be divided into two: the workplace and the worker. And it's basically all about total removal of the hazard, reduction of the hazard, and reducing the risk from greater to lesser, and isolation controls. We're familiar with this, engineering and administrative, and more specifically in this context of workplace control measures, PPE has to be appropriate for the task and the worker. And of course, safety discipline, which basically gives us idea about adequate information that we need to gather, well communicated instruction, not only communicated but well connected instruction, competent training, and sound supervision. So if we may be thinking of the traditional inverted triangle of control hierarchy of control measure, so perhaps we can take a look at this and maybe consider this as one of the interesting tool in risk control measures. So that's my share with you in our tonight's meeting. And CPD, I do not know if you have questions before I go into my last slide. I don't see any message here in the chat, so I'll give you a couple of seconds. You might have questions, just post it on the chat, or otherwise after my summary or conclusion, then we can all for a while we can all be unmuted, and then we can raise question. So finally, to conclude with my talk tonight, as my share to you for this monthly meeting and CPD, let's consider and let's conclude that the role of a risk practitioner in a changing climate is multi-layered. It combines level of competence and basically about our education, skills, and experience. And of course, we are reminded that our responsibilities extend from identifying potential risks to developing and implementing strategies. So we might consider ourselves to be strategists, and let's contribute to our organization in terms of instigating mitigation that they become effective. And also in our business operation, we continue to navigate an increasingly complex landscape, and the need for more skilled and competent risk practitioners becomes more obvious. And of course, this profession is really crucial nowadays for organizational success and resilience. And finally, let's all believe that a strong risk and safety culture is everyone's responsibility as employees in whatever organizations we are involved in. So these are my references. If you don't have any question, let me stop sharing, and I'm open to any question that you may want to raise. Let me just take a look at the message here. There's no message, so what do we mean by this? It means that we're done with our monthly meeting. may I ask our former chairman, Mr. Dipo, do you have any announcement or anything that you would want to add on?
Hi, Leo. Yeah, it's like to see you all. And yeah, so Leo, been discussing on that like future face-to-face meetings. We are looking forward for that, right? So plan is going on. So we are looking forward that each member will come forward to attend the session and also to deliver some presentation on some topics as they choose. So because it's always good that we come forward and share our own views with some presentation, so it will enlighten us, like sharing our own ideas and getting the ideas from our group as well. That's the main agenda, right? Yeah, and yeah, for us safety professionals, what I can share is like in Vibrant, we are planning HSC Conclave on May 14th. We have posted the link on LinkedIn. So those who are interested can sign up over there. So once everything is confirmed, we'll shoot an invitation mail to those interested parties, right? So that is something which is coming up. And yeah, so I think this meeting, once it's planned, we will get back. Yep. Yeah, back to
Thank
Leo.
you. Yeah, thank you, Dips. And also, we are anticipating a meeting with Mark Kidd from 365. Um, we are still finalizing the possibility of meeting with him. Um, we are yet in the committee we're still planning to talk about this, of course, Vibrant being our sponsor always, our partner. It's our privilege to have them with us, and we will inform you in our group chat about the possibility of meeting Mark Kidd, because that will be tentatively that will be on March 9. So because of the venue, we will see if Vibrant can accommodate us for that possibility. But otherwise, we will announce it, or otherwise we will share with you whatever information that we can get from Mark, the CEO of 365. Otherwise, comrades, we're still inviting you to please participate in the presentation. If you may have something in your mind that is worth sharing to us as a committee, as a branch, always remember that this is our organization, and everyone is always welcome to present whatever topic that you feel is worth for us to learn something. So please don't hesitate to share in our WhatsApp group chat. And our CPD in charge is here, Engineer Olivera Revilla. He is our CPD chair. So just post it there. And for the next meeting, hopefully we can have one of you. You will get tired of listening to me, as I'm always the one stepping forward, as it's really difficult to find someone to speak for the brand. So thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much. If there's no other question, guys, let's hope for the best. And tomorrow is a brand new month. So stay risk and safe, and be safe always. Risk free and be safe always. Thank you so much, and good to see you once again. Thank you for joining with us in this monthly meeting and the CPD presentation.
Good
Thank
night,
you, Leo.
everyone.
Thank you.